Hey everyone, welcome to the Coffee People podcast presented by our friends at Roastar Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastar.com. Thank you for being here today. I'm your host, Ryan Woldt. You can follow or subscribe to this show wherever you're listening, but you only get the best bonus context, links, and recaps on coffeepeoplepodcast.com. That's coffeepeoplepodcast.com. This is a special episode featuring Will Reif, the president and founder of Roastar Coffee Packaging. They're a manufacturing company, which, if you listen to our show, know is in my hometown of Wausau, Wisconsin. Roastar has been supporting our show for quite some time. They've been our presenting podcast sponsor for more than 2 years, but I've only met Will briefly and in passing at a coffee convention. I was looking forward to this opportunity to learn more about his inspiration for Roastar and perhaps glean a bit of entrepreneurial inspiration, maybe even advice, for growing a company. I wasn't disappointed, and I don't think that you will be either. If you want to follow along or multitask while you drink a cup of coffee and listen to this podcast, be sure to check out roastar.com to see the types of packaging available for coffee, tea, or snacks, and also check out their packaging design features. That link is in our show notes wherever you're listening. In real life, if you want to meet with the Roastar team, you'll find them at the upcoming Coffee Fest in New York City in March. That's March 8th, 9th, and 10th. They'll be at booth 2716. And then again at the World of Coffee Expo in early April in San Diego. You'll find them on the convention floor at booth 2443. So let's get started. I'm drinking a cup of our Yeah No Yeah coffee collab roasted by our friend Bryant over at Relative Coffee Company in Minneapolis. The cool coffee bag you're seeing on the screen was printed and manufactured by Roastar. I have to admit, I'm a little biased, but this is one easy-to-drink cup of coffee. I hope that you've also got a full mug of something excellent to enjoy as you listen to this week's Coffee People podcast featuring Will Reif, president of Roastar.
My name is Will Reif, and I am the president of Roastar. I started Roastar in 2011. So we are primarily a coffee packaging company. We're a manufacturing company, but we are also an e-commerce company in that we focus heavily on selling our product online. So been here since day one, and been leading the company ever since in different capacities along the way. But I guess the same title.
How many times a week does someone call you Will Reif?
That happened a lot in the beginning of the business. But more and more, I guess it doesn't really bother me whether my last name is Reif or Reif, but it is pronounced Reif. I even just skip over it, and people.
Yeah, I definitely had. I was a Woldt, so we had Woldt driving school back home. So you.
Yep.
So I got that a lot. Roastar, obviously an important component of our show. You've been supporting it for a long time, which we are grateful for. And more importantly, it helps us share the stories of other people in the coffee industry. The focus on coffee, how did that come about? Do you have a first kind of coffee experience or memory that, sent you down the path that would eventually become, your industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it's been more of my relationship with coffee, a winding road. So I don't have any fantastic memory of coffee when I was a child that I can recall. But after I graduated from college, I went down to Costa Rica and taught English there for 6 months. So I was a coffee drinker, but didn't really appreciate it for being anything beyond a beverage until I got a little closer to how it was grown, visited a coffee farm, and that kind of opened my eyes to the larger world of coffee, where it comes from, how much work is put into it to produce. And then later on in my career, I got into packaging. And I think maybe that experience left an impression on me because I found my way back into, okay, working in packaging. How can I connect this to coffee? And some things fell in place to make that happen. But I would say kind of my first experience really thinking about coffee in the bigger world and what it is, what it means beyond just being a beverage was my experience in Costa Rica.
I didn't know that about you going to Costa Rica. I'm assuming there might have been some surfing involved at some point, or at least the attempt.
Yes, I because I'm from Wisconsin, I'd hate to say that I'm a surfer, but when I go there, I surf.
Absolutely. We share something in common. I went to UW Milwaukee for one day, and then I turned around and went right back to Wausau. Wasn't ready yet. Was getting into manufacturing, getting into entrepreneurship, running a company, was that always part of your plan, or this other Will out there somewhere who's teaching English and surfing and floating on the vibe there?
I definitely, was pretty lost when I was younger, as far as thinking about my career and what I wanted to do. So after college, I was much more into experiences and living a couple places outside of Wisconsin. My father was an entrepreneur and started a business, so that kind of background I had been around, seen, and so that I think was definitely an influence on me as I thought about who I wanted to be, and then as opportunities arose, knew that I could be an entrepreneur. I had examples around me and support to do that. So didn't really set out on any clear path to be an entrepreneur, but probably had it in my mind, all along.
So how does that lead to starting a company that becomes Roastar? What's the origin story? If
Um,
it were a Marvel movie, how would we describe it?
Yeah, probably not as interesting as a Marvel movie. After I had lived in Costa Rica for a while and thought about becoming a lawyer and worked as a paralegal, just needed a kind of fresh start, and so went to work for my dad's company. Got exposed to, I guess, packaging, label printing, and those types of customers. The name of the company is called Wausau Coated, sold to. So got some perspective on that market, and going back to, call it 2010, there was a new printing technology, a relatively new printing technology called HP Indigo, and that technology was changing manufacturing in the printing world, going from analog to digital. So you think about at your home, you have an inkjet or laser printer; those have been around for years. But digital printing making its way into the world of manufacturing took a little longer, and so it was that press that allowed digital printing to break through into manufacturing. So I was exposed to that technology, and that's kind of what I worked on, a product line for that press itself. And that's where started to think about how that press could be used in certain markets. And one of them came to be specialty coffee. The press just happened to be 13 inches wide, and kind of one aha moment was just playing with a 12-ounce side gusset bag, which everyone in the coffee industry is familiar with. It's kind of the staple of selling into a grocery store. And if you unfold it, it works. It folds out to about 12 and a half, 13 inches. So that was kind of the moment where I thought about the press, and then the market itself has a lot of different, has a lot of variety. It's not obviously dominated by just a few roasters, which fits digital printing in that it's short run. So in that moment, I guess was kind of the spark of the idea. Okay, the kind of math of this coffee bag works out with this digital press, and then just started to research it a little more. Visited some coffee shows, talked to coffee roasters to see what their frustrations were, and a lot of them said, "Well, we have to order lots of bags. We have to wait a long period of time to receive those bags." So clearly, there and conveniently for me, I was looking to see if there was a problem, and there was a problem in the marketplace. So, kind of when I was in my research phase, everything just kind of fell into place, and an opportunity was there. I didn't have to invent the opportunity; that there was a problem in the marketplace.
No, but you did have to recognize the opportunity and then be confident enough to take a risk to go into that, which is challenging. It's something entrepreneurs face every day. Am I making the right decision? Usually without a lot of grace, and not everyone starts off and it's like, well, there's no harm, no foul if I make a mistake. There's usually a risk there. So identifying that, you find that opportunity and you find that problem to fix. How do you take that next step into, I think a big challenge might have been convincing your customers or future customers that digital printing can be as good? Was it as simple as, I was in design at that time, so I kind of remember this period of print changing. Was it as simple as saying, well, we can give you, it may be different, but we can give you a smaller print run? Or how did you transition through that phase?
Yeah, we in that part of the business in the early days, the sales and marketing aspect of the business was easy. Now I say that today in sales and marketing today, it's a challenge. So I kind of took it for granted. But some of the things that we offered initially, which were we can ship in a week, which was unheard of. We have no setup charges. You can order small quantities. We're based in the U.S. All were things that were really appealing to the market. So before we even printed or made one bag, it was pretty much an experiment. We came up with the name. We got a booth at Coffee Fest San Diego, and this was in 2011. And so we had zero customers at this point, but went to the show and had a booth and said, we're Roastar and we print coffee bags. And the turnout at our booth was excellent, and we won Best New Product at that show. So we started from at least a sales and marketing standpoint with a bang. The reality was we didn't really know what we were doing. It was very much a fake it till you make it.
Yeah, that's that MVP mindset of like the early 2000s. There was a book that came out, the MVP, most valuable product, right?
Yeah,
You put it out there and you see what happens.
that was very much what we did. And I think maybe because I was a little younger at the time, that didn't wasn't making me nervous, and had some good support in starting the company. But that in the early years, the sales and marketing portion of the business was not the challenge. It was actually figuring out how to make a quality product and how to get the operation up and running. Those sales and marketing challenges did appear, but kind of appeared later in our development. So just kind of timing and a couple things worked out to really help us get launched.
I would just say here quickly that World of Coffee Expo is in San Diego again this year. Roastar will be there. We'll share their booth number as well in this episode. And as we go, people can visit and learn more about what they're doing. You started this company in Wisconsin. Not everyone thinks of the middle of our country as a place for big companies or entrepreneurship. And, it's not the first place they think, even though it's rife with all of those things. How does being in the Midwest impact, your company in a good way, a bad way? And, how do you approach customers? Was it really a local thing that grew out, or was it because you started at that first festival in San Diego, it actually came from the outside in?
I mentioned that the business is one part manufacturing and one part e-commerce. From a manufacturing standpoint, Wisconsin is a great place to be, and in printing and in manufacturing of bags. This is a manufacturing hub. There are all sorts of packaging companies in the area, especially the Green Bay, Appleton, Fox Valley area. There are pouch making companies. There are companies that support our industry. So from that standpoint, it's a kind of an ideal place to have a printing manufacturing type facility. On the e-commerce side, it's a little different, and hiring those types of positions and developing a company that needs expertise in that area. However, there are developers here in Wisconsin, and things really changed after COVID with remote work. So our e-commerce department is not all on site, and that's something that we've had to adjust to, along with many other companies. So kind of have to have a mix. I would say to have the type of company that we have in Wausau, Wisconsin, definitely need to be flexible with how we hire and how we look for people, just based on the type of company that we are. With it being a small town in Wisconsin, we have really embraced, who we are, where we're from. So being a Midwesterner is one of our values. And I think if you talk to some of our customers, hopefully that they do recognize that. We're not in a big hurry to get off the phone with people. We want to know our customers well, and take time and take a lot of pride in the quality that we produce. And we know that, we kind of do come from humble roots. We're not from the East Coast or the West Coast. So I think when you deal with the company, like when you deal with Roastar, customer care and looking out for making a quality product is something that comes through because of where we're from.
I would point out that something you just said that should be obvious, but isn't always, is someone answers the phone when you call Roastar. I've heard from people that I've referred to you that was one of their big selling points. Not only does someone answer the phone, but then they'll talk to them or work them through their problem or whatever it is. Digital printing, is it as good as a traditional print? What makes it a worthy value to a customer?
Yeah, digital printing has its place, quality wise, and it is right there. You comparing it to the other forms of print, whether it's flexo or gravure, in my opinion, I can't tell the difference. So the quality of digital is excellent. It has great flexibility in having no setup or plate fees if you have artwork files or you're changing your artwork often. So it has a great advantage there, and really speed to market. So anyone with a digital press, they're usually focused on how quickly they can turn orders. So our customers don't need to hold a lot of inventory, or if demands change quickly, things that they can't predict, especially around holiday sales or other types of events, we can respond very quickly. The downside of digital, you could say, is price, particularly if someone has a lot of volume. So it's kind of where does the customer put value? I mean, if they truly can plan out far in advance their volumes, and they have some consistency, and they don't mind ordering from overseas, and now there's the whole factor of tariffs that are a little unpredictable.
I haven't heard anything about that.
Almost every day. There is, if the whole goal is a cheaper price, there is a way to accomplish that, but it's with tariffs, it's a little more complicated now. So digital isn't, I would say, the best for every situation, but for the people who value it, it really can be an asset to their business.
I mean, you brought up tariffs. I'm just pointing that out.
Yep.
And so my question is if I'm a customer, what is the value with Roastar being made in America? Are you exempt? I mean, do you not exempt, but do you avoid those tariffs in a way, or are they limited? I mean, I'm assuming are all pieces of this of the package being built here or combined here? In my head, I'm thinking ink and paper and glue and plastic and all the stuff.
Yeah. So our primary suppliers, meaning who we directly buy from,
Hmm.
are mostly U.S. I'm trying to think of off the top of my head. There's quite a few components that come in to make a coffee bag.
A lot more than people realize, too, I
Yeah,
think.
more than you realize. I guess the issue with tariffs is that some of our suppliers, the components that they buy to make the raw material that we purchase, um, is bought on outside of the U.S. So I would say we have very good. Um, we are not affected by tariffs as much. Obviously, if you buy from us, there is no tariff. We try to do the best we can in buying products that are made in the U.S. But to say that we're completely unaffected by tariffs, it's pretty hard. I think if you manufacture anything today to not be hit by somewhere in that supply chain. But we definitely minimize that impact, compared to, I think, other companies.
Sure, you creating a little bit of stability um, in your price points and predictability, which is, I mean, I think right now real value add. As we're talking, things might change tomorrow with tariffs or with something else. We've seen that it's not as long or drawn out as maybe it has been in the past. Which brings me to this question from the beginning in San Diego at that first launch. Let's call it. I know you were a company before that, but the first really come to the industry moment to now, Roastar has grown. You started with not quite sure who that customer was, and you've been servicing mid-sized small companies, some who have grown into become big companies. Certainly can do that. How have you changed your perspective on that growth? How have you managed it as a boss?
Mhm.
Um, I'm assuming there's a lot more employees now than there were 12 years ago.
Yes. Yeah, we have about 110 employees now. Started with just four, and in the beginning, it was all. I'll say what I was focused on was innovation, kind of the excitement of selling, very outwardly focused on the customer. And that was the way that I would say I lived, and the company to a great extent, for the first few years. Um, and then what I had to learn was really how to run a business and focus less on that sales and marketing piece, which is a pretty hard if piece to pull yourself away from. If that's where you've been focused and you're an entrepreneur, you're always kind of thinking about new technology, new products, things, ways to do things better. So somewhere along in there, I had to really focus on the business itself, and there were a lot of resources to help with that. So in 2018, we adopted a business operating system that's called Traction. That really changed the business and taught me and others really how to prioritize and how to hold ourselves accountable and others accountable. So that whole portion of running a business and really becoming a more organized, accountable operation that gets good at prioritizing and knows what it needs to do next. That was really a journey that came after the first few years and needed a lot of focus on my part. That was something that didn't come natural to me. Like maybe a little the entrepreneurship and the excitement that brings maybe came a little more natural than actually running a business day to day. So that is really a significant part of what I had to learn to make this company survive and get humbled once or twice along the way.
Hey everyone, just a quick break. I want to say thanks for tuning in to the Coffee People podcast. The show is presented by our friends at Roastar Coffee Packaging, found online at roastar.com. They provide high-quality, affordable packaging for coffee, tea, snacks, and more. I thank them for supporting Coffee People, the podcast, and Coffee People, all of you, by offering low minimum quantity orders and making it easy to create customizable packaging for your company. Check out roastar.com. And now, back to the show. Well, that was gonna lead me right into what advice do you offer to an entrepreneur in your community who's saying, I want to grow as well, at giving up control, which I find to be the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know how I want something done, or I know how I want to do it. At some point when you are growing, you have to give up some of the minutia, some of that control to your sales team, your marketing team, while you focus on creating stability for an entire team. Emotionally, mentally, how do you advise people go about that? Or what did you do to get you to that point where you were, I guess this is who I am now?
Yeah, it probably starts with, and you kind of hinted toward it, I think, in the question is just maybe, knowing who you are, being honest with yourself, realizing what you're good at, what you're not good at, and those things that you're not good at, that might not be who you are or a natural fit for you. So those are the areas where you really look to get help in the form of other people and structure. So I think it probably starts there. You do kind of have to get past that initial phase of the business. Obviously, you need some resources to start hiring people and putting in structure. So if you can battle through that initial phase, I wish I would have shifted more quickly to understanding that there's a business to run, and it's not all about being an entrepreneur and new products and innovation. Just realizing that at an earlier phase. Business operating systems now are out there. That's a topic. So there are, we used Traction, and that really helped us implement the structure that we needed to become a better company. There are other ones out there now. So I would say look at these operating systems. Bigger companies kind of build those operating systems over years and have tons of resources. So I think it's a huge benefit now that there are these business operating systems are there that for us to use kind of off the shelf for smaller companies, entrepreneurs that teach you how bigger businesses operate and should operate on a quarterly cycle, and how you should meet and how you should communicate to your company. So I'd look at adopting that as early as you can.
Reaching out for new resources. One of the things that that drew me to Roastar, besides the fact that I saw one of your employees with a Wausau sticker on his lapel there in Los Angeles when we first met, is the willingness to learn new things, in particular along the lines of sustainability. I don't know if it's realistic that packaging or consumerism can be sustainable. It's a word that gets overused a lot. But the willingness to try was something I noticed right away. And then Danny Toby at Roastar, someone who's been on our show, will link to that as well. Kind of, I think, built herself a role in that sustainability area. I'm wondering if you find more of your company's challenges involves predicting what customers are going to want, whether it's sustainable packaging or tins or something else, or if it's teaching the industry what is maybe the most functional and the best for them. Where do you find that challenge, and what is, what's the better answer to that? It's a weird question, but you're in a unique position where you started by seeing a technology that the market didn't know existed yet and providing an opportunity, and now you're competing with other companies that do some similar things, but you do them in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it needs to be a mix of both. Early on, I think our product development was all kind of was driven internally by, we know this technology is out there. We're going to bring it to packaging, um, and as kind of the company has evolved, you realize that product development really should include the customer as well. So that's where I think we really started to understand I would say, the importance of sustainability within packaging. Beyond that, there are certain trends out in the marketplace um, that have developed that really haven't been on our radar. So as a kind of an entrepreneurial company, you and how we got our start, it's kind of a part of who we are, is we always want to look for new stuff and bring it to the customer base, and have something that is fresh and new, and something that provides value that no one else has thought of before. But you need a good mix of understanding the marketplace. So we've really evolved in including the customer voice in our product development over the years.
Who is the customer for Roastar? I mean, I know there's a lot of them, but who, if someone's listening to this and going, oh, maybe I'm too small or I'm too big, who do you see as the customer you serve best?
Well, specialty coffee, we service all sorts of customers, from the hobbyists all the way up to roasters that are in Target or Walmart, or grocery stores across the U.S. It's it's more kind of the way that you use Roastar for who you are. As I mentioned, if you're a hobby roaster, you might buy just blank bags from us and print those bags or print labels at home. Whereas a really large roaster might use us for special runs at near the holidays, or some event. And then kind of the people in between are the people who use us every day. It's for their packaging that they order and reorder. But I wouldn't exclude any coffee roaster from saying that we're not really a great fit for you. It's just kind of where you fit with what we do, and the right value that we provide the roaster.
So I do this thing with our sponsor Roastar. You might have heard of them,
Okay.
where I ask people for advice on entrepreneurship and business and coffee. I'm wondering, what advice would you give somebody who wants to be a boss, who maybe hasn't stepped into that role in the past? You've got quite a bit of experience at all different levels here. It's a different position than being an employee. What advice would you give to that person looking to make the leap?
Yeah, I would say, first off, that you need to set aside and be intentional about learning how to be a boss, which can be difficult when you're trying to run a business, and customers have demands, and you're trying to hire people. So that was certainly something that I had to learn, was to truly set aside time to invest in learning how to be a boss, and learning um, more about who you are, what your style is. You can't just adopt any old style and apply it. So it has to fit with your personality. Um, and so I would start there. Really set aside time, invest um, in certainly reading, finding a consultant or an advisor to help you understand um, kind of more about your personality and what type of leader you should be. So I think that step, and as I've mentioned kind of in a question or two ago, is find an operating system to apply to your business that will free up a little extra capacity for you really to be a good boss. Some of these operating systems kind of build in structure, so you don't need to figure out everything for how your company runs.
I'm laughing a little bit because sometimes I think that my goal is always to make it as hard as possible because then it's mine. I've figured it out on my own instead of look to others. A lot of times I look to things I learned from my parents who were entrepreneurs. You mentioned early on that you come from a family of entrepreneurs, and you're kind of in a position now where your parents would have been when you were a kid.
Mhm.
Do you see parallels in that, or do you find yourself thinking back to that experience of seeing them run a business that overlap?
Yeah, I would say a little bit, just from the way in which optimism and creativity are really important kind of cornerstones in being entrepreneurs. So there were kind of running a business was part of dinner table talk. Even on vacations, I just would always hear about things going on in the business. But I would say there was always a level of optimism with whatever challenge was being discussed. Nothing, no issue or no problem was too big. So that's something that kind of I think about thinking about when I was a child and I was kind of surrounded um, by a business being formed and growing. That's something that I think you just kind of learn along the way. And as I grew to be an entrepreneur myself, it things happen, and it really is important to lean on your optimism, and know that there are resources out there as issues come at you that you might not be familiar with. That's kind of part of being a business manager or running a business. Is different things just come at you, and you need to adapt to them. So that kind of lifestyle probably I've been around my whole life, and that's just something that it really never ends. There's always something around the corner, and adapting to those issues is kind of becomes a way of life.
I mean, in the course of your business, you've been through, a pandemic, you've been through some major changes in specialty coffee as far as growth of the industry as a whole. One of the things that, at least over the last several years, I've seen that you do is you, as a company, take the time to share stories of your customers, and you've supported this show. You've got Nick going around the country exploring coffee shops. We share those quite a bit. What is the value of supporting and the industry as a whole outside of just we have a product, you want this product, here you go? You could easily do that, and that would be the end of the relationship, but you don't. You kind of take the time and the effort, sometimes in marketing, but also just in general, to uplift that industry. Why do that?
Yeah, I think what I love about the coffee industry, beyond the product itself, is it really is a community of entrepreneurs. So it's a lot of like-minded people. Now their marketing might be different from different areas, and um, they might emphasize certain aspects of the product differently. But it's a pretty exciting area to work in because it is a lot of smaller businesses, entrepreneurs. I get to be around in just 14 years. I have seen coffee brands go from 10 people to 1,000 people, and everywhere in between. So being an entrepreneur and then getting to work with entrepreneurs is something that is really exciting, and that you learn a lot from. And so I think we've internally made that kind of connection. We're an entrepreneur and we work with other entrepreneurs, and we also share that story internally with everyone who works here, to have them also identify as kind of, we're all kind of entrepreneurs, and to provide more opportunity at Roastar to our employees to kind of give that same feeling that maybe a business entrepreneur would have, because I think that helps connect all of us on kind of our mission, in creating this business. So yeah, I think the customer base is pretty unique when you look at kind of servicing other industries, that might involve a lot of big businesses or bureaucracies, or whatever it might be. Coffee's there's just a lot of local businesses involved in that, and that makes it pretty unique and special.
I would also add coffee has a lot of very passionate entrepreneurs, because it's not necessarily an easy, there's a lot of better ways to make money if that's your only goal. And so you have to care about what you're doing. Anything that I missed today that you really wanted to share on the show, or that you wanted people to know about you or Roastar in general?
I would say maybe going back to being a business leader, and some advice that I picked up. And actually, it was more from a book that I read, a John Wooden book, who was a basketball coach, but this doesn't have anything to do with basketball. So one of his famous lines was, "You haven't taught until they have learned." And so that's a line that has stuck with me, and I think it really hits on when you have issues at work. It really, you need to look inward first. And are you thinking clearly? Are you explaining yourself clearly? And it can take a lot of patience to really communicate effectively what you want people to do, or what you're trying to do as a company. And so that kind of, that statement has made me think before, am I communicating clearly enough? And to think about some self-reflection, and how can I do a better job at getting my point across, communicating to the company, so that we're aligned and going in the right direction. So that's a piece of advice for business strugglers or business leaders who may be struggling with communication, is to really look inward.
I happen to know that you have a regular kind of daily coffee order at a local place in Wausau. But let's just say that you're traveling for work, or you're traveling, you stop into a coffee shop. What are you going to order?
It's typically a latte. Once in a while, I'll just go with a black coffee. If I'm traveling, I'm always looking for a good croissant as well. So if they have that, then I'm definitely ordering that. But I would just say a latte would be a typical order that you'd hear from me.
Will, I appreciate you spending kind of 45 minutes here and just sharing some of your thoughts on entrepreneurship. Again, we certainly appreciate you helping us share the stories of coffee people. I'll close out by asking probably the most important question is, if you, for any entrepreneur, truly, if you were a Ninja Turtle, which Ninja Turtle would you be?
Yeah, I guess I'd be Donatello. Was he the one with the staff?
He was.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was.
I thought that would be the most effective weapon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good. You always have to have a good weapon as the boss.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please subscribe to our newsletter at coffeepeoplepodcast.com. Cheers.